We're getting a new report now that the two reasons why Colin Trevorrow was fired from Star Wars Episode 9 is that he, in fact, did want Luke to stay alive for Episode 9, which we have talked about before, but also he was very aggressive in wanting Snoke to be kept alive for Episode 9. In this report, it explains that he had several conversations with J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, and Kathleen Kennedy, saying how he wanted there to be more of an origin story for Snoke in Episode 8, and that would serve a greater purpose in Episode 9. And he also wanted to have Luke alive to have a scene with Leia in Episode 9. That's where you can start to see where the changes to Trevorrow's script would occur, because we lost Princess Leia. We lost Carrie Fisher. So one of those two things could not happen anymore. David, you read this article. There is an excerpt in there where they basically like got in yelling matches. Is that correct?
Yeah, it kind of sounds like it. They talk about how Mark Hamill and Colin Trevorrow were on the same page. However, Kennedy and Johnson wanted Luke dead. Period.
Mm-hmm.
I think he wanted Luke to have a walking off into the sunset type thing. And the article goes on to say that rather than Luke dying in 8, so they refused for him to live. He argued they fired him.
Now, that's interesting to me, Jesse, because we watched the South by Southwest footage where, again, Mark Hamill confirmed he was much on board with Colin Trevorrow's Episode 9 script. He was happy to see where that character was going. And you know that Mark Hamill views Luke as the one who brought hope and inspired the galaxy. And he was a light that ignited the rebellion and A New Hope. So if you hear that, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that is, I would think what the majority of fans would have wanted to see was this Colin Trevorrow Episode 9. Of course, he had these disagreements. I'm happier to know this is the reason behind it. He was passionate about the Star Wars story that he wanted to tell. If Rian Johnson gets to be so committed to his story, then I respect Colin Trevorrow to sticking to his guns. And I'm glad it's this, and it's not the success or the lack thereof of Book of Henry. It was a movie that came out several months ago in theaters.
Less than stellar.
It did not meet a lot of expectations, and it was kind of a flop at the box office. And a lot of people assumed that he lost Episode 9 because of that, Jesse. Turns out he was sticking to his guns. He wanted more Snoke, and he wanted to play with Luke alive.
I definitely think this is plausible. Again, you got to take this stuff with a grain of salt. Obviously, I don't think we're going to get that actual reasoning probably for quite a few years. I think at least not until at least 9 is out.
That's a good point, because it's not confirmed, but it's heavily suggested based on recent statements by Mark Hamill and, of course, this report coming out.
At the same time, if he doesn't have very many movie titles under his belt, and, you mentioned that this Book of Henry, I didn't see it. It didn't do well. I would be a little, as somebody in, like business-wise, or, I'd be a little concerned about...
Jurassic World was one of the highest-grossing movies of the last however many decades, more than $1 billion domestically or globally. I mean, it was huge.
Here's the thing, though. With Jurassic World, it had its flaws, and we can all admit that. But there are things in there that would have translated really, really well to Star Wars. First of all, the visual effects would have been great, because we've seen that. There would have been lots of nods and throwbacks to the things that we love from the original trilogy. We see that with his Jurassic World. Where we see the park up and running, and he's got the minutia down. He's got the commercialism that you would expect from a theme park. He's got the kiddie area where you're riding Triceratops. He's got pamphlets and leaflets, and it looked like it was something that you could believe was true and actually operational.
And then he would throw it back to like the shed or the warehouse from the originals.
And the old Jeep and stuff like that. And that would have been a very good end to a 40-year-old franchise with 9 movies to tie it all back together. So it's interesting to me to see this article, and that the reason why he was canned is because he didn't like the direction it was going. So,
again, plausible. I think a little bit of everything. There could be, I think, a mix here. Of that. The Book of Henry not doing well with the disagreement with keeping Luke and Snoke alive.
I'm going to go with the disagreement with Kathleen Kennedy being the one that took him out. I don't think Book of Henry had a factor with it anymore. Kathleen Kennedy doesn't like, I don't think she likes to be told no, or I don't agree with you. It was made clear, if you take this report for what it says, pretty clear that Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, they wanted Luke dead. Rian wanted him dead. And that's the whole focal point of this Episode 9 controversy, and why it's called so divisive is because of that role of Luke. And we're now getting more and more reports that they're like, Luke dead. That was like a priority. Like, Luke had to die. And I think when you take these legacy characters and we have to get rid of them so we can get our new characters in there so we can make money with the new stories, I think that is a real concern for fans. And I think that this road to Episode 9 is going to be very interesting, and I hope that the fandom can kind of wash the concerns away and give Episode a chance at first viewing and seeing if it can kind of redeem itself. Because I think fans right now, I think a lot of fans feel, the ones that did not like 8, they feel like 9 has to earn their respect back.
So can I ask you a question here?
Go ahead.
Are we worried with Kathleen Kennedy's leadership at Lucasfilm?
I think from a marketing and a business standpoint, I think she's very much a qualified individual in terms of her making storytelling, like direction and input. I personally don't think she's qualified for it, at least not for this franchise, even as much as she's been with Lucasfilm and everything. And yes, George Lucas chose her. I just don't think her talent set is there.
If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. You can watch other videos just like this one right now by checking out these videos on your screen. And by the way, thanks for checking out Beyond the Blast Doors.